Okay, so the third and final piece I want to share with you guys that I found to be most creative. It's my personal favorite. Spoiler alert, I'm totally gonna rank this number one. But anyways, it's a piece entitled Imagine If. It happens to be a kinetic sculpture of 3 horses and a foal. But these are not ordinary horses. Why, if you ask? They happen to have wings. I know, pretty majestic. I know what you're thinking. Really, Jess? Really? Winged horses? That happens to be your favorite of all the things. Of all the things? Really? But actually, it is my favorite, and I can explain why, and I can't wait to explain why. But there's actually a lot of, inner, meaning behind it for me. Because once again, creativity is kind of that individual process, and when I walked up to this piece, I kind of cried, which is not bad, but it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely beautiful. So like I said before, it's a kinetic sculpture. It's a little bit different than the Lewin Keffelin flow piece that I talked about, because this this artist didn't really give us any clue as to what the meaning or the significance would be. So, with that being said, you get to hear what I think it is. Yes. Lucky you. So for me, there's a lot of meaning behind it, and I kind of have to go into some backstories about my personal life to help you understand why this piece was so beautiful to me. So I grew up with horses. I did. I've been riding since I was 4 years old. Horses really kept me out of trouble for my whole life. I didn't hit that trouble phase until I was over the horse thing. So, but they're great. I literally, I don't think I could imagine life without them. So for me, when I looked at this piece, it took me back. I think there's 3 powerful things this piece did for me. It took me back to my past. It really made me reflect about the present. And then it also brought me to the future. And I'll explain. So I had this horse. Her name was Keela. She was my first horse. She was the most adorable. Technically, she was a pony, so she was a bit short. But she was the most amazing first horse I could possibly have. For some reason, I don't know if it's just her personality. That's the other thing. Horses have personalities, and I think that's what makes them such beautiful creatures, because they literally, every single horse is different. If you own them, or you have them, or if you've ever, I don't know, spent a lot of time with them, you really pick up on their personalities. And Keela, she took on this motherly role. Eventually, she was a mother, but at the time, when I got her, she literally became my mom. It sounds weird to say that, but she took care of me. We had 12 horses, and they were naughty brutes in the pasture. So I'd go out there to go see her, bring her treats and apples and carrots and fun things like that. And she'd just pin her ears, and she'd chase the other horses away, and she took care of me. I didn't have to worry about the other horses getting rambunctious. She did. She took care of me. So we had a special bond. And that was my first horse, my first big responsibility as a kid. So I loved her more than anything. I was doodling her name all over my notebook and stuff like that, and I thought about her all the time. She was amazing. For some reason, I have unfortunate luck with animals. I don't know what it is. I have a huge heart for animals, but they don't really like me. I try so hard, and I just force my love upon them, and maybe that's the problem, but they don't want anything to do with me. So Keela, I think she kind of bit the bullet, because she knew okay, this is my human, but I gotta protect her because she's small and I kind of like her. But so like I said, we had an amazing bond. She was, I don't know, the best horse. She really was. And she took care of me, like I said. I think with that connection you have with horses, it's almost like they are a person. Every horse I've ever owned, I don't know, they know everything about me. Obviously, they don't talk back, which is really nice sometimes. But they are my rock. You need a place to go, you need a vent. You just go out there, and they listen. And not only that, but sometimes they're touched by your emotion. and they emulate that, and it's powerful. So, long story short, Keela was my baby. I loved her to pieces. One day, unfortunately, I was in the 6th grade, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was so heartbreaking, especially for a child. But I came home from school, and I walked in the house, and every single day I put my stuff down, go to the kitchen, grab an after-school snack. Like, who doesn't? You know, like freaking, what are they, like, Ho-Hos or Twinkies or, you know, those weird little cheese stick things that you dip. I don't know. Something like that. But so I came home to get a snack, and my mom came in, and like she had a weird face on, and I was just kind of like, "Hey, Mom," and she like couldn't talk. I was like, "You good? You know, like you need a hug? Like having a bad day? Like what's going on?" Of course, I'm a child, so I don't really understand, you know, and so I just turned around and she started crying. And she started crying, and I was like, "Oh, Mom," and I ran over and I gave her a hug, and I was like, "Are you okay? You know, like, what happened? Like, want to talk about it?" And she told me, you know, unfortunately, you know, Jess, we had to put Keela down. So, I lost her. There's something in the horse world called casting, and basically, when they lay down in a stall, for example, sometimes if they are too close to a wall and they roll, their legs will, they're kind of awkward creatures on the ground, if you ask me, but their legs will hit like the wall, and they'll get stuck like that, which is really hard on them, like where their lungs are placed and everything. Well, like I said, I have the weirdest, strangest, like most absurd luck with animals, but there was like a piece of fat or something that like got entangled and wrapped around some organ, and I don't know, I was just a kid, I didn't understand. But I came home that day, and I lost everything that I ever loved in my entire life. That was my first love, was my horse Keela. And she was gone, just completely gone. I didn't get to say goodbye to her. I didn't expect that. I came home like it was a normal day, and I came home to such tragic news that my horse was gone. And that was so hard. So I'm sure you're wondering, like, what does this have to do with, you know, flying horses, or flying winged horses? Well, I always had these weird ways of imagining things when I was little. One thing, like, I always called apple trees dancing trees, because when we drive by, like, their branches are so intertwined and goofy that I saw them not as strange, but as beautiful, as dancing trees. Well, with horses, for some reason when I was little, my justification for losing a horse, because unfortunately Keela was not the first to die, or the last. We've been through many, but I always imagined that horses always went to heaven, no matter what. And when they went to heaven, they would die, and that's when they grew wings, and those wings would take them to heaven. And with that, when we die, when our time comes to pass, they would be waiting for us outside Heaven's Gate with their wings. And it was like this. It sounds so silly to talk about, but like for me, it was actually like super emotional, because it took me back to my childhood. I resurrected the pain of losing something, my horse, and then I reinstilled this image of how they go to heaven with these wings, and that brought me to the future when I would see my horse again. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but this piece was super meaningful to me. It was like, I think the best part is, to me, it wasn't an art piece. It wasn't something, like, it wasn't an exhibit. It was an experience. It literally took me through time to a place that imagine if that's what it's called. Imagine. I was able to imagine what that's like. And that is so powerful to me. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, I cried. It wasn't like a sobbing weep, but like it brought tears to my eyes, because I felt like I was standing there looking at the horses that I've lost, and I was right there with them. And that's what makes it so amazing, especially being a kinetic sculpture, is that these are 3D images. Like, these horses looked real, and I've been around them my whole life, so the detail, I could detect it. There's the cheekbone on the horse, like you could see that. And then not only that, but as people would walk through the Amway where it was at, they kind of would move a little bit. So it was like they were moving like they were alive. Like, it was great. I loved it so much. So thinking about and hypothesizing about the creative process that went into creating this, this one seems impossible to me. Like, I can imagine coming up with the idea, constructing the design and actually, like, implementing everything. Like, it's just crazy. But so it's obviously a 3D image, so there's a lot of things that go into play with aligning every single individual piece. So there's pieces that are all tied to fishing line, and then they're all hung from, like, a grate. It's huge, but a huge grate, all in the right location to make an image and to bring it to life. So you end up with this this individual alignment of pieces in space that come together in a realistic representation of horses that have wings. So crazy. So I think what kind of another thing that went into the creative process, excuse me, something is in my eyeball, is coming up with color schemes. Like, these horses are white. I think there's a reason for that. Well, maybe not, but to me there was. And just, maybe, I don't know how to describe it. For me, like, angelic, almost, like white. Like I said, they're all going to heaven. Like, not that all horses are white, but for some reason it made sense to me. But coming up with the color schemes, what individual objects to hang, hanging them actually on that fishing line, the lighting actually plays an effect too, whether they use blue lights or green lights or whatnot. So I think there's a lot that went into it. But not only that, but transporting it and putting it together, like, the time involved. I mean, every single piece at ArtPrize obviously took a lot of time, but this one for me was just like, I was just blown away by it. It was so real. It was like I said, like, imagine if, like, you're imagining something that doesn't exist, like horses that have wings. Like, they aren't real. You will never find one outside on the streets, but to use your imagination, it was brought to life to the point where I believed it. Like, I was like, man, I'm gonna ride this horse that has wings. Like, it was so real. I loved it. So what influences may have led to the creation of this exhibit? Honestly, for this one, I gotta say, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that's an acceptable answer because for me, it would make sense if I created this because of the influence that horses have had in my life. And, like I said, this idea I had when I was a little girl that they grew wings and could fly away to heaven. But for the author here, or artist, I keep saying author, artist, I don't know what may have led to this. Maybe she too had a connection with a horse in her past, or maybe she wanted to challenge her own imagination by bringing about an animal that really doesn't exist, and, like I said, turning it into something real. It's hard to say. I don't know, that's really tough. So some of the, like, ideologies that it might point toward, or the critiques of our culture, I don't know, I feel like it's simply in just, this piece alone just encourages people to live with an abstract mind, to challenge your own creative abilities, to bring to life something that only exists in the imagination. Like, what is actually wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. That's a whole different dimension of thinking the impossible. Like, I don't know, maybe that's something that, it's not really an ideology or, like, a critique, but maybe that's what she's trying to do? I'm not quite sure. That one's kind of tough too. But because of the powerful meaning behind this, and the fact that, like I said, it brought me back to my past, it resurrected this pain that I used to feel for, losing my horse, and it also brought me to the future of maybe seeing her again in heaven. I ranked it number 1. I loved it. That was the first piece. The other pieces I really had to think about and engage in. This piece I cried right as I was walking up because I knew what it was. I saw it, and it was like, it was amazing. It was, like I said, it wasn't art to me. It was an experience. It was an experience that I can't explain. So that's what made it so important to me. And really, that's exactly why I ranked it number 1. Just, I don't know. It was beautiful. Like, I wish it wasn't fake. I wish that that was what horses looked like. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being silly childish, but I don't know. I loved it. So anyways, ArtPrize 2016 was a complete blast. I learned a lot. I saw a lot. It was a lot of fun. But by far, Imagine If was my favorite piece.